I'm Kia Mortazadi with Orange County Transportation Authority. As I was introduced, I'm the Director of Planning, and it's my pleasure tonight to talk to you about the Long Range Transportation Plan, which was recently approved. So again, thank you for the invitation, and I'd like to walk you through the major elements of the Long Range Transportation Plan, beginning with the major, why do we do this and what's the purpose? OCTA updates the Long Range Transportation Plan every 4 years to evaluate how well the planned improvements are working, and it will address our travel needs over the next 20 to 25 years, to identify transportation strategies that may be necessary to correct course if needed, and to define our list of projects that should be considered in the Southern California's the Regional Transportation Plan that makes our projects eligible for federal funding. So in developing the plan, OCTA considers several factors. One is the current commitments. What do we have, so to speak, that we're committed to, that we need to deliver? How much money reasonably we can expect over the next 25 years? What are the new regulations that we need to acknowledge? Feedback from stakeholders and communities as we go out and update the plan, and changes in populations and demographics. Changes in demographics is one of the major drivers for our plan, because obviously that's what's driving it. And for example, between the last plan and this plan, we just kind of picked up the impacts of the recession. People kind of moved around and changed driving habits. That was, for example, a big change. So looking at this plan, between 2015 and 2040, so we're kind of taking a 25-year horizon, population is expected to grow by 10%, or 311 residents. Employment at the same time is expected to grow by 17%, or 275,000 jobs. So we kind of looked at it as that, well, what would happen if we had all those people, but essentially today's transportation system? So that's just holding everything else constant, our transportation system constant. Kind of see that if we do that, congestion will increase by 66%. That's obviously, it's not a reality, because we are going to be doing projects, but it was just the sense that a test that we run just to kind of see what happens if we do nothing. So that's obviously, that's not a future that we want to strive for. So over the next several slides, I'll kind of walk you through what our vision is for the future. So we have, in Orange County, we have roughly 1,700 lane miles of freeways, and lane miles, if you were to basically look at all the lanes on the freeways, put them end to end, that's basically what lane mile is. And Orange County, that's what we have. That includes obviously the freeways as well as the toll roads. The LRTP, or the Long Range Plan, proposes to increase the capacity by 13%, or 214 lane miles, primarily delivering projects that were promised to the voters as part of the Measure M. So that kind of goes to what I mentioned earlier, delivering our current commitments. And in addition, for example, we have additional, so some of those projects are the one that was recently completed, is the I-5 carpool lanes between PCH and Pico, that recently opened last June, as well as some of the future additions that I will talk to. And some of the additional projects that we're talking about is the extension of those carpool lanes all the way to San Diego County line. That's kind of shown in gold on the bottom half of on the kind of right side, right bottom of the slide. So I should note that the plan also assumes that the transportation corridor agencies will widen the existing facilities, which equates to another 150 lane miles that are shown in purple. The southern extension of the 241 is not part of the plan.
Woohoo!
But it is noted as a concept that requires further study and definition and support before being added to the plan. So it's something that we acknowledge that's out there, but we're not including it for now because it's not defined. So even with the planned highways and tollways, Caltrans believes that our carpool lanes will not be meeting the federal standards. The federal standard is the carpool lane in simple terms, during peak periods, should be operating at 45 miles an hour or better. And so their strategy is that they should probably increase the occupancy requirements to make to have fewer cars there, but they believe that if they do that, that will have too few cars in there. And so the next level is to allow some of the other cars to basically pay a toll to get back in the lane. So that is a concept that is included in the plan, but it's something that we will be working with Caltrans to prioritize on an as-needed basis. So right now, no specific projects are defined, and it's something that we're looking to work with Caltrans and see what would come forward if and when it's needed. So with respect to local streets, we have about 6,400 lane miles of arterials in the county, and the plan assumes that lane miles will be increased by about 10%. That's primarily through the build out of the general plans that local agencies have today. So we're not proposing any additional roadways that are not on the plans. So that is either closing critical gaps or widening streets that are not at the general plan ultimates. So those are the kinds of projects that are assumed. And Measure M provides support for those kinds of activities through providing funding. Now, one thing about the arterial system in Orange County is that it carries about half the load, half the mileage is on the arterial system. And so we're fortunate that we have such a balanced system. So on one end, that's why it's important that we make sure that it works efficiently. And for that purpose, we also encourage communities and agencies to work together to synchronize traffic signals across jurisdictions. So we assume that we will continue to have the signal synchronization across these network of arterials. And for example, in your area, Avenida Pico, El Camino Real, and Vista Hermosa are good candidates that are assumed in the plan to stay coordinated. So with respect to active transportation, something that we're also acknowledging that we can do better on. And the plan assumes that we will be expanding the county's bikeway network by 58%. So that allows people to basically use it for the first mile or the last mile of a trip, either to get to a train station or at the other end to get to the place of work, or for shorter commutes. So over the past several years, we have completed, basically worked with the local jurisdictions to have a county-wide plan where everybody agrees what the regional priorities ought to be, so that when we build trails, they actually go someplace. And so we're working to implement that, and that's shown simply on the right. And then secondarily, we're working with agencies to implement those, and an example of that is the OC Loop, which is in the northern part of the county. And that kind of starts with the Santa Ana River East of Coast Highway and going up Coyote Creek. Other examples are, and as I can kind of update the slide here, you can see there's a regional connectors where we're looking to, for example, take a look at a cross-county connector beginning with the El Camino Real Class 4 bike trail that will then connect to a trail that kind of goes all the way across the county and connects to the Pacific Electric right-of-way all the way across. And then from there, obviously, you can branch out to other trails. So those are the kinds of improvements that can be made, and we envision that for the future. So with respect to transit, that's a key element, and the vision is to grow the bus transit ridership by focusing fixed route services in higher demand areas and looking to serve the lower demand areas with new service models. The LRTP looks to build ridership in the central core of the county by implementing 11 high-capacity corridors, shown on the map kind of in the bright blue, and including OC streetcar that you can see the initial the alignment basically on the left. At the same time, we assume that we will be able to continue providing services such as OC Flex, which was recently introduced. That's a demand responsive, basically there's no fixed route to it, and continue to fund services such as the San Clemente the trolley, as well as the rideshare partnerships that this, for example, San Clemente has with Lyft, as long as we can assure that our productivity standards are met. So those are things that we include, and if we were able to pull that off, the strategy that allows us to improve transit service by increase the supply of it by 30%, and that will help attract more ridership to the service. We're also assuming that by 2040, the transit fleet would be 100% zero emission. That's one of the regulations that were recently put in place. So we're going to work over the next 25 years to meet that regulation. So with respect to rail, we're also assuming that we're going to be increasing rail service on all the 3 lines that serve Orange County. And we go from roughly 54 trains that serve Orange County today to 86 trains. Most of the service increase obviously is going to be Laguna Niguel North. We have limited track capacity south of Laguna Niguel, but the service that goes from south of Laguna Niguel to Oceanside that basically serves San Clemente is retained, so that's there. But most of the increase is basically going to the north and as well as Los Angeles. So what happens if we do all these things? I mean, what's the end result? We see that in comparison with the 2040 no build, the trend to 2040, which is basically what we're labeling our plan, that's shown in orange. It allows us to it performs better compared to the do nothing across all measures. And you can see that when it comes to hours of delay, we're doing better, travel time, transit trips are increased, freeway speeds improve, and arterial speeds improve. And essentially allows us to get back to today's conditions, but that's acknowledging that we're also accommodating 1.7 more trips. So we're able to address the growth issues as well as the economic vitality of the county, and make sure that our transportation system is still viable and provides the accessibility and mobility that it's providing today. The performance, but we recognize that that's not, it doesn't really stop there, and we need to do more. And so in the plan, within the plan we propose to do, we have some short-term action plans, and that includes activities and planning that's focused within Orange County. An example of that, and I'll mention that later a little bit. Other ones are regional regional studies, and one of them is, for example, working with Los Angeles to better connect our transit services to their services, especially that we have the 2028 Olympics coming, and Orange County is one of the venues, for example. So we need to plan for that and be prepared. Some of the emerging issues, there's talk of, we're still tracking where autonomous vehicles are at, and how, for example, we can be better prepared when those technologies are actually are introduced, as well as outreach to make sure that people are aware of the types of services that OCTA has, so that they can basically use the choices that may be available to them. So I would say some of the specific actions that OCTA would undertake would be working with SCAG, and that's the Southern California Association of Governments, to make sure that our projects, we expect to complete, is included in the long range in the regional transportation plan. So that's a critical element. As well as we want to be working to advance plan projects and short-term action plans. And one of those is the South County multimodal study, where we will revisit the mobility needs and priorities that were previously evaluated, in this area in roughly around the 2008 time period. A lot has happened since then. As I said, the demographics has changed. Some of the key projects like the I-5 carpool lane projects have been completed. We have more Metro Link service, for example, going. Some of the projects are still expected to be completed, such as completion of that minor 0.9 miles of Ortega Highway, making sure that that's completed. And some projects have changed. There is a settlement agreement, and we know that Foothill, the extension of Foothill is not going to be there, and we don't know what's going to be there, but we're trying to make sure that we are prepared and we're providing the choices that community and the travel and the commuters expect from us. So these will then allow us to be better prepared for our next version of the plan that comes up in 2022. But in the meantime, we'll be working with our partners in the region to make sure that the current projects are included in the 2020 Regional Transportation Plan. So I know I went a little bit quickly. I didn't know how much time I was allotted, but I wanted to give you a quick glimpse of what's included in the plan, and I'm here, so that kind of wraps it up for me, but I'm happy to answer any questions or go back to any areas that you have questions on.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Kia, for all of the improvements that OCTA has made to San Clemente on I-5, we'll let you talk as long as you want. We appreciate hearing from you. I have a question. You said the 241 extension is only listed as a concept because it's not defined. But recently SCAG just finished their long-range regional transportation plan. How is the 241 listed in SCAG's plan? Do you know? What's
included in the 2016 Regional Transportation Plan is basically what's referred to as the green alignment, which is no longer an option because by virtue of the settlement. So we have communicated with SCAG our list of projects, so that's been transmitted. And SCAG has started the work on the 2020 Regional Transportation Plan, and that's roughly a 10-month process, I should say, a 1-year process, and it's by the time you finish the analysis. So they're working towards that, and then so the next version of the SCAG plan will be consistent with the OCTA plan.
That is my question. So it should be consistent because it's also been taken out of the circulation element for the county.
Correct.
So it all should match so that our regional planning is correct.
Agreed. They kind of build on each other, so they're looking at the local level as to what our plans are, and they kind of build on that, and so it's just a matter of time.
Okay. So should there be anything that the city of San Clemente should comment on, or that's already part of the plan as far as what the OCTA has sent? It's already in the works.
It is already in the works, but city, you have the option of providing input to SCAG normally as part of the regional transportation plan.
All right, thank you very much.
Dan, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation and coming down.
My pleasure.
As part of the South Orange County multimodal study, is OCTA going to take a look at the arterials that are already listed on the NPAH and evaluate whether some of those arterials should be completed, for example, before, say, new roads are added to the NPAH that don't exist right now? Is that something that you'll do as part of that process, to do any traffic circulation analysis?
In short, yes.
Okay.
We should be looking at that. I think we work very hard with local agencies to make sure that what we are assuming is a realistic version of the arterial system. A lot of cities have streets under circulation elements, and we want to make sure that, number one, we're consistent with the circulation element, but also focusing on making sure that we're reflecting segments that are actually going to be completed, and work towards some sort of an agreement where the sections that are not going to be completed, for example, there was a way to address those. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to ignore that, because I think when development is done, or everybody ties back to the circulation element of the local agencies.
Mhm.
And so we need to kind of be consistent in that sense as well.
Okay, and so when you do traffic analysis and consistent with that study at that time, or are you just gonna be looking at potential projects?
We're gonna be looking at the city's circulation elements. That's what we normally use.
And the county's MPH as well?
And the county's, that's what it is, and the county circulation elements for the unincorporated areas.
Okay.
Chris, sorry. The only thing I want to, besides saying, we love what you did to our freeway, thank you very much, and please continue south, that would be really nice. Has there been discussion of having, completing La Plata all the way through to the freeway or to Virginia's? Has that been in, or is that too detailed?
The Lopata, I believe, I'm trying to kind of, I guess, understand what reference.
Well, La Plata now goes all the way north. It's connected all the way
Right.
north, all the way south, and it dead ends on the south end before the base. I was just wondering if there was any discussion going through as far as finishing off La Plata for an ulterior route to the south end of the freeway.
At this point, there isn't, because we're looking into this, for example, one source would be the county's circulation element, and as long, if it's something there, we would, but as part of the study, we could be looking at what other options there may be, right? You know, for example, San Clemente did prepare a circulation study, a traffic study, so we could be looking at studies like that and what came out of that, so we'll use studies like that as well.
All right, thank you very much. No other thing? Thank you for coming, I really appreciate it.
For coming.